Hi, art friends. Welcome to Moonbeam Jellyfish. I'm Emily, and this is my channel. And I am super happy that you are here. In today's video, we are going to draw and paint a super simple watercolor to celebrate the Harvest Festival, Mabon. Stick around to learn more about Mabon as I walk you through this cute painting. Grab a fine liner and some watercolors, and we'll dive right in. Okay, so I decided I'm going to be super bold today and dive right in using a Micron fine liner. No pencil drawing for me, but please use a pencil for your drawing if that makes you feel more comfy. I'm working in my 10 by 7 inch Grabie or Grabie, I think it's Grabie, watercolor pad, and the paper is 100% cotton and has a cold pressed finish, which means it's a little bit bumpy. I had a basic idea of where I wanted my drawing to be on the page before I started drawing. We are drawing a pomegranate and an apple slice. They're both circles, although my apple kind of turned out a little bit more oval, but that's okay. We aren't trying for perfection, right? We're just having fun creating. And I love creating artwork to represent the different festivals of the Wheel of the Year. I decided to draw these particular fruits because of their association with Mabon, which is the second harvest festival of the year. As most people know it as the autumn equinox, and it marks the time when day and night are equal, but the darkness of night begins to overtake the light of day. All right, I have drawn my circles, and now I'm going to draw the top of the pomegranate, which looks kind of like a little crown, but it's actually called a calyx, which I just learned today. For the most part, we will only see the front of the calyx, but we can see just a little bit of the other side peeking through, which is what kind of gives it the illusion of being round. And here in a few minutes, I will be drawing the peduncle, which is just a little tiny rectangle at the bottom of the fruit. And then I will be darkening my lines since I'm a lot more confident in their placement. And then I also changed the shape of the pomegranate just a little bit. So there's like a little bit of an extra line, but that kind of fades into the background once the painting is finished. So I don't freak out about that. Next, I am drawing an inner circle to represent the apple peel, as well as drawing in the seeds in a star-like shape. And I also draw a line behind and in front of the fruit to make it look like it's sitting on a table, not just like floating in the air. Now I'm using the wet on wet method, adding water to the apple first, and then going in with a creamy consistency of like a cream color for the flesh of the apple. I use a concentrated consistency in the center as like the first layer in the apple seeds and to kind of add a little bit of a shadow in the center, as well as the outer edge to begin building up a little bit of a shadow in that area as well. All right, so now onto the pomegranate, and I'm using the wet on wet method again. And I definitely should have been using a bigger brush, also with like a more blunt end instead of so pointy. And remember, where you put the water is where the paint will flow to. And then after wetting the surface, I drop in a light wash of the maroon from my Schmincke watercolor palette. I'm also leaving a few areas untouched in order to leave some highlighted areas. And remember, when working with watercolors, we work light to dark, and it can be tough to lighten areas once there's a lot of paint put down. Next, I'm bringing in some of that cream color that I used for the apple. We have to remember that nothing is like truly one color, so I'll be using several colors to bring the pomegranate to life. I'm dropping in a more creamy consistency of the maroon now, continuing to leave some of the lighter spaces. You can see in my final painting where I added the shadows, which I will be building up with each layer. And while the paper is still wet, I continue to add more concentrated layers of that maroon. The trick with this is to make sure you aren't bringing in a whole bunch more water. You're just bringing in a creamy consistency of the paint, or it can dry with these like burst-like edges, and that can be beautiful, but if that's not what you're going for, you just have to be really careful. While I continue painting, let's talk about the changing season. As the energy shifts from summer to autumn, there are several fun activities we can do to celebrate Mabon and the autumn season. Some ideas are apple picking, visiting a pumpkin patch, decorating with pumpkins and autumn flowers, baking bread and pastries. This year, I plan on baking some rosemary focaccia bread and I think some apple crisp. I'll be back with some more inspiration to celebrate this time of year. I continue building up the cream colors as well because they kind of get a little bit lost as I continue making the pomegranate a little bit darker. I'm also adding that same color into the calyx, the little crown, and the peduncle, which is that little part on the end, and that's a hilarious word, in order to begin building up those areas as well. My paper is dry, and now I'm going to begin glazing my painting using maroon and magenta. Glazing is the technique of applying thin, transparent layers of diluted color over previously dried paint layers. That's important to create depth, adjust tones, and build up value gradually without the colors mixing directly on the paper. And the key to successful glazing is to allow the underlying layers to dry completely to prevent muddiness and to apply the glaze with soft pressure and minimal brush strokes. The paper is still damp and the paint I'm using is a little more concentrated than the last paint that I used. And I'm only adding it right now mostly to the areas that I want to be the darkest. I switched to a smaller brush for now in order to have more control while I'm painting close to the outline and next to the apple as I continue to build up the layers. All right, now I am just going in with a clean, damp brush, and it's also a little larger than the brush I was using before, just to begin softening the edges of the paint that I put down. I will dab my brush off every now and then as I pick up more paint, and you really only want to run your brush right along the edge of the paint you put down and not disturb the paint in the middle, because again, disrupting it can kind of cause these weird blooms, and it can dry kind of funny. I'm dropping in a concentrated mix of maroon and magenta while the paper is still wet in order to create richer tones and to deepen that red color. And it also helps it to diffuse a little bit more naturally since the paper is still wet. And I'm going to be repeating this process several times. So I'm just going to continue building up all that color. So getting back to the Equinox celebration, some more ideas for celebrating the shift in seasons is to spend time in nature. You can take a hike, just slow down to meditate and notice all of the changing colors of the season. It's a really great way to ground ourselves before the chaos of the holidays. There are a couple of parks where I live that I really enjoy taking the time to walk through. I absolutely love all the warm colors of the leaves and the flowers this time of year. It's also a great time to set some goals for the remainder of the year and to release anything in your life that is no longer serving you. I like to take time to journal and really check in with myself and how I'm feeling. Maybe let go of any negative self-talk I've been dealing with or any stories I've been telling myself that I just don't align with anymore with who I am today. I've been going through stuff, purging items I no longer want or don't represent me anymore or that I just don't need. And I love to just like reset my spaces after doing that for the autumn season. I wish I could have a bonfire, but it has been very dry where I live. And I think it's supposed to rain anyways, so I guess that's okay. But I can light some candles because it's a great way to celebrate the balance between light and dark. Using apples as candle holders is a great way to decorate. It's super easy. You just core out the center of an apple. You just don't go all the way through the bottom. And then you can sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon on it, and that will actually call in a little bit of luck for you. And then you just stick a taper candle inside, and there you go. You have a nice little cute candle holder. Making a simmer pot using cinnamon and cloves and nutmeg, star anise, rosemary, apples, and a little splash of vanilla is such a delightful way to transform our homes with the sense of the season and create such a cozy, cozy haven of like the natural seasonal fragrances, and it can call in positive energies. It's one of my favorite simple things to do to celebrate this autumn season. For the apple seeds and the more hidden sections of the calyx, as well as the peduncle, I use a concentrated mix of sepia brown, and then for the apple skin, I use May green. As I mentioned in the drawing portion, I didn't want it to look like the fruit was just floating. So I drew in some lines to represent like a table. I also wanted there to be reflections of the fruit colors. So I started by wetting the paper, then added in some of the magenta for the pomegranate reflection, as well as some of that May green for the apple reflection. And then I added a wash of light blue to kind of represent a table that could be made of glass. Sorry, I was off camera for a little bit there. I decided to keep with the blue, but made a much more concentrated mix. I put the paint down first and then brought in a little bit of clean water to spread the paint around. And I also left one side a little bit darker than the other for some contrast. I thought the pomegranate still looked a little too flat, so I decided to glaze over it again to build up some more depth and contrast. camera, I took a step back and thought that the painting still needed a little something. So I added some leaves. I painted them first with the May green and then added a little dark green just to give them a little more definition and contrast. And I also add just a touch of the green to the calyx as well. And then I'm gonna go in and I'm going to outline the leaves after they're dry, and then go back in with a smaller brush with the greens as well to give a little bit more definition to the leaves. So I also decided to write Mabon across the page. I just looked up some lettering styles that I really liked on, I think, Pinterest, and then I just drew the letters myself, kind of using what I found as a reference. And then I'm just using various black Posca markers to color in the letters. I also end up tracing over some of the outlines in order to add some different line weights and have some of them stand out just a little bit more. So here are a few more ideas to round out our Mabon celebration. I have made apple cider in the past, but recently I've been buying apple cider from like a local apple orchard. I just pour it into a crock pot and then add apple slices, a cinnamon stick, a few cloves, and as an extra treat, I like to add a little bit of caramel. It's so delicious. Making jams out of the last fruits of the season is a great way to preserve the taste of the summer throughout the winter months. And then lastly, sit in the grass, feel the breeze, listen to the leaves falling to the ground, and make a gratitude list. There has been a lot going on this year, and at times I have found it really tough to find things to be positive about. Creating a gratitude list is such a great way to appreciate all that we really have in our lives and to kind of reframe our minds for the remainder of the year, kind of the dark months. It's not always easy, but having a gratitude list really does help me bring a little bit more positivity into my life and just kind of reflect on who I am and how much I've grown and just have much better, kind of more positive attitude moving forward. Thank you so much for joining me today for this Mabon celebratory artwork. I hope that you enjoyed it. And as always, you can follow me on Bluesky and tag me there with your paintings and drawings. I would love to see what you have going on. I'm super excited for October, and I'm planning to post a new video every Sunday for the entire month. So make sure you're subscribed to my channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when I post new videos. I appreciate you all so much, and until next time, keep creating art that shines from within.